أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. We seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the shaitan, the accursed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who describes himself first and foremost, repetitively and consecutively in the Quran as Ar-Rahman, the one who is overwhelmingly compassionate. Compassion to a level that you and I necessarily can't understand. Compassionate, and he gives to human beings to such an extent that many people, they forget. For example, how many of us, we woke up this morning and thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our eyesight, or for our teeth, or for our families? He is Ar-Rahman because this is the characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that on the day of judgment, every human being is going to be striving for. Every single one of us is going to be begging for the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He will forgive us for what we did. Nir-Rahim, specifically merciful. Alhamdulillah. The praises are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it begs the question, Alhamdulillah, the praises. Well, what praises are being discussed? The reality is that the nature of praise, the nature of thanks, the nature of this word ham is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you and I praise Him or not. Whether you and I recognize Him or not, it's irrelevant of that fact. The nature of praise is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you and I are in a state of praising Him or not. But then the obvious next step of that is Inna alhamdulillah. Inna alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa natawakkal alayh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyi'ati a'malina. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we ask for His guidance and His forgiveness. For what? For everything that we've done in our lives. For anything that we have done that we know was wrong, that we realize is wrong, but yet we ask forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from these things. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from protection, not only from the kuffar or from the shaitan or these other outside forces, but yet an internal force that follows us everywhere we go. A slave master that's with us every single second of our life, our own nafs, the evil that we commit when no one is watching, when no one is looking, when you're completely and totally and utterly alone. The evil that we commit, that others knew about it, knew about who we really were, then they'll look at us with disgust. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who we really are. But yet He still forgives us. He still gives us the opportunity to return to Him alone. And we recognize that whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, none can misguide that person. That those people who have been guided to the truth, that those people who have been guided to Islam, there's no force, there's no power that can misguide these individuals. My brothers and sisters, have you looked at yourselves in the mirror? Who are you? Before the creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He first created the pen. And He told the pen to write what? Everything. And in these preserved tablets, in these books, your name was mentioned. And your name was written. That one day you would be a Muslim. What have you done to deserve that? What have we done to deserve that honor? What were we doing now to be a part of that group who are Muslims? This is a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yet there is very little action that one has done or what is doing to deserve this. But yet why were you chosen while others were not? What do you have to offer that others do not? And why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose you while He did not choose others? And we recognize those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows to be led astray, then they're doomed. Then there's no help for these type of people. That sometimes the heart of a human being becomes so hardened, becomes so rusted, becomes so darkened, that they're unable to be guided. We seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this type of evil and this type of damnation. We realize that the only deity, the only being that's worthy of our worship is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is the one who's created everything. He is the one that sustains everything. He is the only one that can help you, the only one that can harm you, the only one that can benefit you or take anything away from you. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone who can do that. And we recognize that the life that we want to live is not the life of these actors or these singers or these politicians. My brothers and sisters, think about when you were younger. Think about when you were younger. Think about those who had influence in the time when you were just when you were younger. Think about those movie stars, those actors, those singers, those politicians, those generals, those leaders. Where are they now? They're nowhere. They're trivial and irrelevant within the society, within the history that we live in. But yet we wish and we desire to live our lives like the example of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A man who lived this life so he can be an example for us. A man who walked this earth to give us a way of retribution, a way of getting forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose name lives on. While other people who try to emulate, try to be like, they die out and they become irrelevant. My brothers and sisters, I'm not bad. My brothers and sisters, before I get to the topic of my khutbah, I want us to take a moment to bring into our hearts and to think deeply about those people who are suffering all around the world, and specifically most currently in Egypt right now. The way the army is treating the people as if they are a foreign invader, the way that people are being brutalized on the streets, the way people are being murdered and killed, attacked. Not foreigners. It's one thing when two nations go to war, but this type is very difficult on the people there because people are being killed on the street by the very people that are supposed to be protecting them. And if you're being killed by your protector, then who do you have other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you? And what's happening in Egypt is a very tragic, terrible situation. So when we're gathered here today, do not forget the Muslims of Egypt. And do not forget your brothers and sisters in Syria. And do not forget your brothers and sisters in Burma and Palestine and Pakistan, all over the world. Every day and every week and every month, every year, the Khatibs have to remind us about those who are suffering all around the planet. Yet here we have ease, we have comfort, we have peace. But yet does that ease, comfort, and peace make us more thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or does it make us of those who become ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That we start complaining about really trivial matters such as traffic or the quality of food that we eat or that we didn't get enough sleep last night while other people are living in warlike situations. Who are we that we are tested with ease, with plenty, with abundance, while others are tested with hardship and difficulty? My brothers and sisters, education, development of knowledge, literacy, scholarship, schooling, studying, training, which in turn leads to cultivation, sets humanity in certain directions. It creates civilization, intelligence. My brothers and sisters, the key to success in our world and in the past has always been to gain a proper and reasonable education. Yet, education is something that is sought by all people in all the time. During the time of Prophet ﷺ, they were living in darkness. Europe was in the dark ages at that time. The tribalistic society that they were living in was basically breaking down. The people were getting into war for over 100 years over issues such as camels. The Persian empires and the Byzantine empire were in essence crippling and crumbling down. And it was in this status, in this state, 500 plus years after the last revelation, when Angel Gabriel came down and revealed the first revelation to humanity, the first revelation to humankind for over 500 years. And you would imagine that that revelation, the first part of it, would be worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pray your salah, give zakat, fast during Ramadan. But no, the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is vast. And the very first revelation that we all know is Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read, recite, understand in the name of your Lord who creates. Creates what? Everything that you know and that you don't know. And this profound statement of reading and understanding, it's something that for some strange not only do you first need to understand what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want from you? What does He require from you? What does He desire from us? This requires studying. This requires an understanding. It is not enough if you were born Muslim and that this is enough for you. No, this is foolishness and misguidance. Rather, the first type of education that the soul needs, the body desires, that you are required to have is the knowledge of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and what He commands from you. Secondly, and equally and utterly important, is you need to learn and have knowledge of what we mistakenly called secular education. Though it's not secular education, it is Islamic education. Knowledge is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But across the Muslim world, we have taken a stance of, for some reason, abandoning this type of knowledge. In fact, there's a sobering statistic that there are more universities and colleges in the state of California than the entire Middle East. But yet, the Muslims during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they understood the importance of education, the importance of gaining a thorough education in order to change and revolutionize their society. Think about it. How did a people without written language, how did a people who are really backwards in every sense of the word, how did the people who other societies didn't even want to conquer because there would be a burden on them, that they, within a century, created a civilization that stretched from Indonesia to Morocco, that within 2 centuries, that within several centuries after that, stretched from even Spain and Italy and went down to sub-Saharan Africa. What happened? What changed? The reality is everything changed. The message of Islam is not a message that we take it today as being waqim wa salat and zakah, but rather it was a comprehensive way of life that they understood, yet we have abandoned. That they combined the Islamic morality in order to understand civilization, how to establish it. One simple example of this is roads or cities. People need places to live. But yet the environment also has a right on you as well. You can clear cut an entire area and build homes for people, but yet the entire society will become decrepit and will decay because there's no earth, there's no greenery around them. While the exact opposite could be true, that you don't use the resources that are available to you. Both are extremes. But what Islam does is it teaches you about who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and gives you this middle path for you to follow. A path that you not only give the rights of the human being, but you give the rights of the plants, of the animals, so on and so forth. That this civilization is what Islam brought to us. But yet that has now been bereft. So what you have in much of the Muslim world is you have the ulama, the religious people who are in the masjids preaching who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and then you have others who run the society, run the affairs of the government, and steal and take and use this system as a way to enrich themselves, rather than empowering the people that they're entrusted with. What happened? What happened is that education is not the cornerstone of these societies. Education is not the focus. One particular part of education that exists today is the high cost of education. Those of you who have children, those of you who have grandchildren, you know that when they go to college, it's going to be a disaster, to put it bluntly. The high cost of education forces many Muslims to take on riba, to take on loans that are interest bearing in order to provide education for their children. And they're in this duality and this pulling forces. Either A, you go and give your kids a proper education, but you'll need to consume riba. And many Muslims and many of us were in this category. Riba is inherent evil within our tradition, within Islam. And riba is one of the greatest sins that a person can do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe, do not consume interest, double and multiply, but fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you may be successful." We all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "O you who believe, observe your duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and give up what remains of usury, interest, riba, if you are really believers. And if you do not, then take notice But if you repent, you shall have your capital without interest, and do not deal unjustly with one another. My brothers and sisters, interest is a form of economic warfare that can be put onto a society. What it does is it creates those who are wealthy, they become wealthy, and those who are poor become poorer. A simple example, if you buy a $10,000 car, a man who's wealthy buys a $10,000 car, he can just pay for it, he bought the car for $10,000. Those who finance it with 3% or 5% interest, at the end of that loan, because of the fact that the man he does not have enough money, he will end up paying maybe around $13,000 back. Why? Because he didn't have the money. So those people, they are becoming wealthier. It separates wealth within the society. Another evil that it does is you make money off of money, and money doesn't necessarily have any intrinsic value. But yet people who want securities within their wealth, they charge interest to make sure that just because they're rich, just because they have and they loan it, they'll be given more and they actually become wealthier. And entire nations in our day, we are witnessing entire countries are given loans by the IMF and other world banks, and the loan interest and the amount is so high, it's higher than their GDP, basically how much the country generates. So the entire country and nation become enslaved by the actions of a few people in the past. My brothers and sisters, many Muslims and many non-Muslims are suffering the catastrophic effects of riba, of interest-bearing loans, and yet they're put into a no-win situation. Either you get an education by taking a loan, or you don't. And these are the options. But I don't believe it has to be like that. I don't believe that that's the way we should move forward. I don't believe that this is the only options we should give our Muslim youth and our children. No, I believe in another way, a solution perhaps to this problem, a long-term solution. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أما بعد. My brothers and sisters, my name is Faizan Syed. I'm the I was brought to this community by my good friend Dr. Haq. I know where he is. But I was brought to this community in order to present you a vision, an idea. An idea that education can be different. That you do not have to choose between your religion versus your education. And the idea is an idea that as a community, we need to provide options and help for our Muslim students so when they go to get their education, they are not compounded with interest-bearing loans and debt that they will have years to pay off. I have a good friend of mine, he's a non-Muslim. He took $80,000 worth of debt to go to college and he studied history, which of course all Muslims think that's a bad idea in the first place. The interest he's paying on that loan is $900 a month. His repayment option is such that he will basically be out of debt in the year 2052, age 25 years old. Meaning that he'll have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and he'll still be paying off his loan. And this isn't funny. Many of us might be in a similar situation, or we are putting our children in this type of situation. We developed an organization, it's called A Continuous Charity, Sadaqah Jariyah, which is an organization designed to tackle this problem from multiple perspectives. We not only give students loans, not interest of course, to Muslims who are pursuing higher education, but we also provide education for the Muslim community on ways of saving money when your children go to college. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to give a few practical steps on how you, as parents and children going to college, can perhaps try to save money while going into college. But before I get to that, I want to let you know tonight in this masjid there's family night, right? Family night. That's mashallah, an amazing idea. You gotta be dedicated to this. We're doing family night tonight, and during this program, I will also be presenting more about what is a continuous charity, how we operate, how we work, and how we hope to really tackle this problem of providing education for the Muslim community, which is the key to success, while also maintaining our religious identity and not forcing our children to take high interest-bearing loans. And a few ideas before I conclude. Number one, and of course these are just ideas. In some cases you might not be able to practically follow them in case if your children go to, for example, medical school or not, but just quick ideas. Number one, you can try going to community college. Community college, it sounds bad for a lot of Muslims because why you want to go to community college? But many community colleges, you can transfer your credit from that community college to an actual four-year degree. So when you graduate, you'll graduate with the degree from that university, but you're taking 2 years of elective class and other classes at this college for zero or reduced cost, and then you transfer and you get your degree. Many students do it. It's a good way of saving funds. Number two, apply to as many scholarships and programs as you possibly can. What many people don't know is about 30% of all scholarships out there never get applied for. So there's a huge chunk of money that's never applied for because people think, okay, I don't qualify, I don't have the ability to get it. But actually, if you apply for multiple scholarships, there's a high chance that you might get them. Number three, parents, especially those of you who are first-generation immigrants, understand that your children may not have the most information about college and university. Many of us, this might be the first time our children are going to college or university, and we assume they know everything. They know what college they're going to, they know what they want to study, but this actually is not the case. Many kids, especially if they grow up in the United States, they don't know what they want to do. They don't really know what they want to study. They don't necessarily know that much about the educational experience either, and they might make really bad decisions. So as a parent, you need to take a proactive role. Don't just trust your children in knowing how to make the right decision, but rather you have to take the responsibility of doing this as well. Number four, try not to live in the college dorms or live on college campuses. One of the biggest money-producing systems for universities and colleges is the dorm system. So if you live on campus and you eat their meal plans, this is actually a way for the university to make money off of you. The costs are astronomical. When your children go to college, if it's out of LA or whatever town you're in LA, if it's out of this area, try to have them live in an apartment, try to have them cook by themselves. You'll save several thousands of dollars in the long run because, again, it is a way of making money for the education institution. Do not be fooled in this idea that if they live on campus, they'll get the college experience. It is partially true. You do get a unique college experience if you live on campus, but from a debt perspective, it's a complete something you want to stay away from. Number six, encourage your children to have a job while they're in college. Encourage your children to get a job while they're in college. I know many of us, we think, okay, college is challenging, it's difficult to work and school, you're going to have these barriers. But what's interesting is that even if a student works, let's say, a minimum paying job, he works 20 hours a week, 8 hours on the weekend, maybe 4 hours throughout the weekdays. After 4 years, they would make $30,000, around 30, 29,000 something dollars after 4 years. And that gives them breathing room when they're in college. So if they're making $30,000 over 4 years, that can actually help start paying off the loan. You can also start paying off the interest if you have interest-bearing loans as well. You have them have a job. Even if it's a minimal weekend job, it really adds up over a 4-year period of time. Number six, take subsidized loans. I don't know if people know what subsidized loans are. Basically, they're loans that the government subsidizes the interest part of it. So you're not necessarily paying interest on these loans. And then once you graduate, you have 6 months to pay it back. If you pay it back before those 6 months, then you can actually take a loan from the U.S. government, but not actually be consuming riba. Though there is a difference of opinion that even if you make a contract, the contract includes riba that will be paid off in the future, you can't get to that contract. If you follow that, advice, you probably shouldn't do this particular piece of advice. Number seven, know that your student debt is never forgiven. Student debt is never, ever, ever, ever forgiven. If you file for bankruptcy, your debt is forgiven, right? But even, I know people file for bankruptcy, I know bankruptcy papers, big bold letters, it just says student debt is not forgiven. Your student debt isn't even forgiven when you die. It's just that they can't come and get money from you anymore, so they close the book. But it's not forgiven. When you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your debt is not forgiven, you will be held accountable for that. So realize it's something very serious. Student debt is never forgiven, except if you live in UK and other countries, they're not trying to influence these laws. Maybe it'll happen in the United States, Allah knows best. Number 9, try taking a semester or a year off of college in order to work in order to pay off the debt. Now, again, I want to warn you, this advice is not for everyone. Some people, when they take a semester or a year off, it's hard for them to go back to school. But it is a good way from a debt perspective to get out of debt. You go to school for 2 years, you take 1 year off, you make money, you pay it back, and you have breathing room for when you go back to college. And your scholarships and your loans don't necessarily fall off. Though there is a chance that if you're taking loans and you already have loans, 6 months go by, you will have to start paying interest on those loans. So something you need to look at. But don't worry about the college experience. This is an option you can do. Try to get out of loan. And the last but not least is don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. Many of us, we become intimidated by college, especially for those parents whose children are for the first time going to college. We don't really know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. When I was in college, I didn't really understand what $20,000 of debt meant. I didn't understand that figure. Every semester, I basically get some papers that sign here, and you sign it off, and you continue schooling, you continue education. Don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid. Learn about what college you're going to. Ask questions and really figure out how much is the debt, how much is the cost, how am I going to pay it off. And don't wait to do that until after they go to school or after they start college. Many young children, and not young adults actually, when they go to school, they've been going to public school their entire life. They never had to pay for schooling before. So when they go to school, they don't really know what they're getting themselves into. Yes? So what you need to do is don't be afraid. Look at it, understand the situation, understand the problem, and inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the wisdom to understand these words here today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to really focus on education as the key to success and allow us to open our minds, open our hearts, and try to fix and handle the solution. Ameen. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع مجيب الدعوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار قال تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Please make sure the lines are straight. Guard your hearts from the shaitan. Fill in the gaps. Please make sure the line is straight. And please turn off the cell phones. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد فعال لما يريد. هل أتاك حديث الجنود فرعون وثمود بل الذين كفروا في تكذيب والله من ورائهم محيط بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First and foremost, I would like to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bringing us all together here. And for our brother Faizan Sayyid, it was education, a great khutbah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And brothers and sisters, like you said, there is, the family meeting Friday night. He will be here. Pick his brain. He's got a lot of ideas for people who are kids are going for preparing to go to college. It'll be great. There will be just delicious food at a nominal cost. So please be here tonight. It starts at 8 o'clock. First and foremost, I would ask everybody once again and always, please make du'as. Sister Razia Begum, the mother of Dr. Shaheen Idris, and mother-in-law of our brother Iqbal Idris, passed away on Wednesday. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pray for her maghfirah and pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive her shortcomings and give her a special place in Jannah and sabr jameel to the family. We have just got notification. We have another brother who died yesterday. His name is Dr. Bashir Baraj. Please pray for his maghfirah also, brothers and sisters, and so Allah make forgive his shortcomings. I also request dua for Shifa. We have some brothers and some sisters. Some of them are really seriously ill. Dr. Arif Rizvi's mother, as you all know. Sister Sadia Rizvi's mother. Brother Azhar Malik, who is really struggling, who is in ICU still, and he's struggling. Brother Ramtullah, he's going through the procedures. And Sister Ruxana Normani, she's very ill and she's in the hospital. Please pray for her, Shifa. Please pray for the family and please make it easy on them. One announcement I have, please make sure when you're leaving the hall, buy a lunch. There is this has been donated by Lodi Market. So all the money which they collect, the proceeds are going to the Islamic Center. So please stop by, see what they have to offer. Regarding the parking, I saw somebody again parked on the wrong side. The east side of Automobile, please make sure you do not park there. There's always a chance of getting a ticket. So please avoid that. Sunday school registration, that is on 8/25. That is the 25th of August at 10:30 a.m., the first day of school. And as brother once again said, education. So we are all excited. With the first day of Sunday school is starting on 9th, on 8th of September. So please take note of that. Anything else we have,